I didn't even have 10,000.
Okay, that should be that. And I want to make sure that you're the main picture,
Right.
not Karen. Hi, Karen. I'm going to make our picture the main picture. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
All right. So you're on there, Karen? Right. I see
Yeah,
you.
she waved, so she must
Okay,
have
good.
heard us.
Okay, excellent. All right. So I'm going to begin. Hopefully- Ladies, okay. By the way, come up to me later. I couldn't remember everything that we're lacking, but I brought some. So we have them. Okay, we're doing the Reformation and Martin Luther, and you're going, I don't know if you've ever studied, I mean, I'm sure you study in general about the Reformation and, its repercussions throughout Christian Europe. But I don't know how much you know about Martin Luther and his writings on the Jews. I say you're going to.
Why are they picking on the Jews?
Constantly. It's the question forever. What can I tell you?
The Jews did it. We have nothing to do with that.
Yes.
We're blamed for a very good scapegoat. It's throughout history that, we're a minority and we stand out as being very different. And well, nowadays you could say that as the Jews. It's not always that we're so successful. I told you, I remember when I did more modern, Jewish history, and I mentioned it last week, and now they accuse us of being the capitalists, but then they accuse us of being the communists. Well, they are very diametrically opposed.
No, that's what we are.
Philosophies,
But
but
all there is to accuse us.
Yeah.
I mean, killing children and eating their blood.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't
that-
eat them.
no, and that blood libel has, from the time it
That's
cropped up in
really-
the 1100s, I mean,
That's
it has
going
just
back.
continued. I mean, even to this day in
Yeah.
certain area, even I know in the Arab world, they
That's
actually
the one
printed,
that
it's
they
in
did
Arabic,
then,
but
yeah.
they printed the Protocols of the Elders Design, which we haven't yet gone to. That's, early 20th century. But let's just deal with the
Okay, Martin
Protestants, okay, and their attitude towards the Jews. Okay, you don't have that one. I have it next year. You don't have that? You
Somebody
should.
reminded me the other
Okay, it's
night
called-
that
Karen, you have
love
yours.
Jews.
It's called the Reformation.
I have it.
Right. Do you have the thing? All
I
right.
have
Oh, God.
mine.
Just have it. So
She
you
has
have it.
it
So
all.
you're all set. Okay. So I kind of like to usually read it together with you. All right. And then, but I'll explain things as we go along. Okay. The Reformation sealed the fate of the old medieval order of Europe. Remember, up until this time, everybody there is Catholic, right? That is the only church. It is the Catholic Church. I'm not talking about those, like Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, but we're talking about, more Western Europe. Everybody is a Catholic. And the excesses of the Renaissance church, though, its hypocrisy and immorality disillusioned millions of its adherents. The church at this point was quite wealthy. The behavior of some of its popes was not exactly exemplary. I'm not saying they all were like this, but there was a lot of shenanigans that often were taking place, and people started to look askance at this. These are supposed to be the people, our religious leaders were looking up to them, and this is how they're behaving. So there's going to be a change, a seismic change, in that Christian world. All of the old heresies that had previously been suppressed, compromised, and ignored by the church now reared their heads with a vengeance. Now, throughout the history of the church, there were occasions where different groups had different interpretations of canonical law, I think is how you pronounce it, right? And there definitely were several revolts, against the church, but they were always put down. All right. But now we're going to have as I say, it's really a seismic change in the church world, in the Christian world, and we're going to see what it is. And it's always interesting, even when I was studying about the beginnings of the church and how Christianity just spread like wildfire. I mean, it started obviously in Israel, and then it goes to Syria, and then it goes to other parts of Mesopotamia, and then, and then it caught fire like in Europe, and it's like amazing from being a little nothing, it gained, these millions of adherents. So the same thing is going to happen now with the spread of Protestantism. So you need to take out this page about the Reformation. If you don't have it, I have an extra copy. Okay. Okay, what's that? So I'm at second paragraph. You with me? Second paragraph.
Right.
The main impetus, okay, so what caused this, all of a sudden, this like revolution in the Christian world, so the main impetus for the tidal wave of Protestantism, now you see the word protest, they were protesting the behaviors in the Catholic Church and their doctrine, that overwhelmed much of Europe in the 16th century, was supplied by a German Catholic priest. Okay, what's his name? That's Martin Luther. When I looked up his dates, just so you know, he was born actually in 1483, and he died in 1546. Okay, he was an Augustinian monk. I'm not sure exactly what Augustinian means, but he is, he's not Dominican. He's not, he's Augustinian. I guess after St. Augustine must have followed, some of his writings. And he was an ordained priest. So he is a Catholic priest. Started out to preach reform within the Catholic Church. And he found an unexpectedly large following among the people. I mean, we're talking about, so first maybe tens, then hundreds, and then thousands, and then became millions, right, who adopted Protestantism as their version of Christianity. And it wasn't just like the common folk, some of the nobility in different countries. I think they had enough of the Catholic Church interfering, with how they were doing things or conducting business, and that they want to break free of that. Before long, his movement broke completely with the traditions and organization of Catholicism. So I looked it up. So in the year 1517, if you remember when you learned world history, he had this proclamation, his 95 theses, things that he was accusing the church of, that he was criticizing them, and he put them on the door of his church in Wittenberg. Wittenberg is in the section of Germany called Saxony. And I have an old atlas at home, but I always like to look things up to see where things are. I think it became East Germany. I can't quite tell from the map that I have, but that's what it looks like. That's where Wittenberg is. And okay, what was he complaining about the most? This is what he's known for complaining. Obviously, 95 things that he was complaining about, but mostly about the sale of indulgences. And an indulgence was, you know how if you're Catholic, if you're a good Catholic, you can go to the priest and confess your sins, and then he'll tell you also a whole bunch of Hail Marys, or I don't know, do some good deeds. But it had gotten to the point that the church was actually selling these indulgences. These are like forgiveness if you paid them a certain amount of money, and it was becoming very widespread. And literally, do you think if you go to somebody and confess and they say, all right, all of a sudden that means you've absolved yourself of your sins? It doesn't talk about doing teshuva, really. I used to work in an office in Manhattan, and I became friendly with some of the Catholic girls, there. And they told me, like, very religious, every Sunday they went to church and they confessed their sins. I mean, they were like, God knows what, sleeping with their boyfriends, doing what else. But all right, so whatever the priest told them to do, then they go back during the week, behaving the same way, and then they go again on the following Sunday. At that point, no, I don't think so. Although you always gave some charity, you always would have put something in their pushka, their plate.
But I think part of what the priest told him, I'm sure, is sin no more.
Yeah, but it was like it was okay to go back to the same thing. It wasn't our concept of how one should do teshuva. Actually, that's the hardest thing of teshuva. Should you be in this similar situation, right? Will you then have the strength of character, not to behave in the same way, but to have fully returned to Hashem, doing the mitzvahs properly. Any case, just a little information, so I looked it up. So the Pope at that time was Leo X, and the Holy Roman Emperor was Charles V. All right. Now, the Holy Roman Empire covered most of Germany, part of Bohemia, maybe some very northern areas of Italy. France really has their own king. They were the Bourbon kings. And I'm not sure if it included part, sometimes it was part of Spain was also the Holy, so I don't know. I'd have to really look that up and investigate. I don't know sufficient, but I just wanted to tell you his name was Charles V. And he often comes in when we do Jewish history from this time period. We'll talk about Charles V. Okay. So anyways, this is how it started. And I guess other people passed by the church in Wittenberg and said, yeah, we agree with him. This is a terrible practice that's going on within the Catholic Church, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, it spread like wildfire. And he had these thousands and millions of adherents. So they were protesting, and they're going to have a reform. They're going to make a reform. It actually becomes a newer version, a going back to the original, so to speak, interpretation of the Bible. Obviously, it would include the Christian Bible, the second, not just the Torah that we believe in, but the New Testament. And it was a pure interpretation of the Bible, again, including both sections. But it's Christian. It's a Christian. Don't think that they were giving away. Right. And part of the thing was also, I told you, the Catholic Church was extremely wealthy, and they wanted to go back to a plainer way of living. And also, a Protestant priest, they are allowed to marry, unlike, maybe that's part of the problem in the Catholic Church, that they have this business of celibacy. So, any case, all right, now let's go back, and now we'll learn a little bit more how we're going to fit in, Jewish history with all that's going on. Okay, before long, his movement broke completely with the traditions and organization of Catholicism. Luther was soon joined by other Protestant reformers. And again, when you study world history, some of these names might sound familiar. Zwingli, Calvin, and Knox, and soon Germany, Switzerland, Scandinavia, England, parts of Austria, France, and Bohemia also became Protestant. But just so you know, Austria is primarily Catholic. It is primarily. And also, remember, that's why I said parts of Austria might have become Protestant. Parts, that would be the Huguenots when we talk about France, but that's a small area. Most of France is Catholic, all right? And Bohemia, that's Czech, well, it's no longer Czech, the Czech Republic, okay, that area. So again, there's still plenty of Catholics there, but some, do adopt Protestantism as their new religion and interpretation of Christianity. Decades of war and atrocity ensued. The struggle culminated in the 30 Years' War, which was 1618 to 1648, and that depopulated large sections of Germany. Most of the fighting seemed to have taken place in Germany, although it did spread to other areas. And then I did look it up. I'll try to get more information for next time when I talk more about the Jews of Germany in this time period. It was also sort of like a battle between, again, when we talk Holy Roman Empire, again, we're thinking primarily Germany at this point, very fragmented, broken up into many principalities. But now the Habsburgs in Austria are gaining in power. So it's going to become a battle between the Habsburgs of Austria and the Bourbons of France to see who are going to dominate in the end. Okay. The map of Europe was redrawn, and secular government gradually replaced church authority. Secular. I mean, it's still Christian. I mean, this choice of words is maybe not exactly appropriate. And these are people who would still be going to the church on Sundays, and celebrating whatever various Christian holidays, et cetera, et cetera. but it's not Catholic anymore, that's for sure. And the Pope has no role anymore, right, in determining. This is also around the same time period, of Henry VIII. Remember, he wanted to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, and he wrote to the Pope numerous times, and the Pope said, no, you cannot divorce her, and marry Anne Boleyn. So finally said, forget it. I am now the head of the church. I'm in my own church, the Church of England, which is the day of Protestant church. And that's the Episcopalians. It's the Anglican church in England, and in America, it's the Episcopalian church. All right. Those were Anglicans who came to live in America, and they called their church. My mother always used to say, my mother grew up in Jersey City, which I think was pretty much of a Catholic city. But she knew a lot of, because in public schools in those days, you were forced to almost celebrate certain, Christian things. So my mother always used to call them Episcopalians. It was a very high church.
That's what they call them.
So you remember that?
They're like the rich.
Right. That or very formal, I guess, inside their churches. They're the most similar to the Catholics in the way they run their service. That's what it is. Okay. Now the Catholic Church, they're not going to sit there and say, okay, what we do, you want to opt out, they fall back, right? This wave of reforming, it was revitalized with its own, it's called the Counter-Reformation. And as Jews, we are always caught in the middle. Exactly. Okay. The Reformation also resulted in profound effects on the Jewish people. Originally, the breakup of the church raised the hopes of the Jews of Europe.
Right.
Yeah, they had been suffering under Catholicism, right? And different promulgations that the various popes made against them. Look at that horrible Inquisition that was in Spain and Portugal, So for them to think, oh, great, now there's going to be this monumental change in the way of thinking of Christians in Europe. So it raised their hopes. The continual persecution of Jews and Judaism in Renaissance times had reinforced Jewish antipathy towards the church itself. And this is also the time period, remember we did last week, the growth of ghettos. Again, Jews have always lived in their own neighborhood, so to speak, but this is a ghetto. It was enforced by law, and a wall would have been built around the Jewish neighborhood. The Reformation initially opened up the possibility of democratization and humanity in the Christian world. Well, they thought this hopefully, I don't know if you remember this, was it 1963 that Pope, was the famous Pope who said, oh, we're finally, all right, that we're finally, Jews are no longer guilty of having killed
We didn't kill
JC.
No.
And I remember reading it was in the paper, like a big headline. I said, oh, thank you very much. I mean, that's like, after what, 2,000 years, we're not guilty of that, whatever. Any case, I mean, he was a good person, I don't want, but, and it took a lot of guts on his part, actually, to come out, with that ruling. This hopefully would prove to be a moderating influence in the church's attitude towards the Jews living in its midst. Okay, it appears at the beginning, okay, now we're going to bring you into Martin Luther, because he is basically the head of this Reformation movement. This false illusion was fanned by the early statements of Martin Luther. And I'm going to read you, I have a very good friend, she's since made Aliyah, but she was a professor of religion. Actually, would you believe it, at a small college in Ohio called Wittenberg. And so it's very Lutheran, heavily Lutheran, but she used to teach about the persecution of the Jews. I mean, I guess she had comparative religion course. I'm not sure what else she did, but whatever. So I'm going to read to you some excerpts from Martin Luther's writings, and you'll see how it changes like dramatically from his early writings, all right, when he does sound like he's very favorable to the Jews and easing restrictions upon them and welcoming them into the fold. But unfortunately, as you know, what's going to happen is what's his main goal? He wants the Jews to now adopt his brand of Christianity. It wasn't like all of a sudden, oh, let's be friends, let's get together, he wants to transform us, that we should now, so So he initially starts out by saying, oh, the reasons why the Jews have never converted to Christianity is because, oh, those terrible Catholics and how they've treated them over the centuries. And it's no wonder that the Jews don't want to become part of the Christian church. Ah, but if we treat them with kindness and welcome them in, well, surely they will convert. Well, of course, the Jews, being obstinate as we are, of course, we refused to do so. And boy, does he change. So within 20 years, you're going to see how his writings concerning the Jews changes dramatically. Okay, let me see. Let me get to. One of three. There's the first part. Okay. His first writing that he did when it came to the Jews came out in 1523, and it was called That Jesus Christ Was Born a Jew. Thank you.
Okay,
We know
it's
that.
true.
Okay. This is what he wrote. Okay, this is taking from his actual article. Oh, Christ was a Jew born of a virgin. Okay, now they figured that one out, but that's good. Perhaps I will attract some of the Jews to the Christian faith. Our fools, the popes, the bishops, the sophists and monks, those coarse blockheads. Up until this time, they've treated the Jews. Have until this time so treated the Jews. You know, again, he's decrying the terrible treatment that the Catholic Church has meted out to the Jews. That to be a good Christian, one would have to become a Jew. And if I had been a Jew and had seen such idiots and blockheads ruling and teaching the Christian religion, I would rather have been a sow, pig, than a Christian. Okay, again, these are his early writings. For they have dealt with the Jews as if they were dogs and not human beings. Okay, we would certainly agree to that. Okay, they have done nothing for them. So again, it's all about the Catholic Church, right? They have done nothing for them but curse them and seize their wealth. Whenever they converted them, they did not teach them that either the Christian law or life, but only subjected them to papistry and monkery, whatever fancy words. In any case, when these Jews saw that Judaism had such strong scriptural basis, in other words, because that's what he was trying to change within the Catholic Church. He felt it had swayed away from the original teachings, which were a pure definition of Christianity, a more modest, plainer interpretation, and they've made it into this big, fancy, very wealthy Catholic church. So he's trying to say, oh, it's no wonder that the Jews never wanted to adopt, any of those forms of interpreting Christianity. And Catholicism was pure nonsense without biblical support. He obviously spoke, it's like a tirade, he not minced his words, Martin Luther. Again, this is 1523, those theses, 1517. So not too many years after, he is now writing this treatise. Okay. If the Jews are treated friendly and instructed kindly through the Bible, many of them will become real Christians and come back to the ancient faith of the prophets and patriarchs. What? That's Judaism. But okay, in his mind, that's pure Christianity. I would advise and beg everybody to deal kindly with the Jews and to instruct them in the scriptures. Well, we can't interpret it ourselves, but okay. In such a case, we could expect them to come over to us. Okay. How can we expect them to improve if we forbid them to work among us and to have civil intercourse with us and to force them into usury? Another, about all the restrictions against the Jews during the medieval period on, even though now we're in the period of the Renaissance. By the way, I told you when you study the Renaissance, it's always the Renaissance and the Reformation, like they kind of go hand in hand or the same time period. If we wish to make them better, we must deal with them not according to the law of the Pope, but according to the law of Christian charity. We must receive them kindly, allow them to compete with us in earning a livelihood, and give them an opportunity to witness Christian life and doctrine. All right. And then the the end result will be, of course, they will adopt our interpretation of what true, pure Christianity is. Okay, now in 1543, 20 years later, he's going to come out with another promulgation, and it's called Concerning the Jews and Their Lies. Okay, because obviously the Jews have not adopted his interpretation of Christianity. What then shall we Christians do with this damned, rejected race of Jews? They were rejected by God and then refused to accept Jesus as the Messiah. Since they live among us, we know about their lying and blasphemy and cursing. We cannot tolerate them. We cannot convert the Jews. We must prayerfully and reverentially practice a merciful severity. Perhaps we may save a few. They are surely being punished 1,000 times more than we might wish them. Let me give you my honest advice. And now you will be shocked. This is what Martin Luther wrote. And you can see the Nazis adopted all these things, right, hundreds of years later. First, their synagogues. They should be set on fire.
Wow.
And whatever does not burn up, we should be covered or spread over with dirt so that no one may ever see a cinder or a stone of it. This ought to be done for the honor of God and Christianity, in order that God may see that we are Christians and we have not wittingly tolerated or approved of such public lying, cursing, and blaspheming of his son and his Christians. All right, this is, because the Jews have not adopted, right, Protestantism. His brand is called Lutheranism. Okay. Secondly, their homes should likewise be broken down and destroyed. For they I'm telling you, and apparently as the Nazis rose to power, these writings of Luther went widespread throughout Germany, verbatim. They took just exactly what he was writing, and
That's why
they followed suit. Right. Okay, so for the houses, they talking about the Jews, they perpetrate the same things there that they do in their synagogues. Okay. And for this, they ought to be put under one roof or in a stable. So in other words, again, why they should then be put into ghettos and in the concentration camps. They should realize they are not masters in our land, but miserable captives. 3, they should be deprived of their prayer books and Talmuds in which such idolatry, lies, cursing, and blasphemy are taught. 4th, their rabbis must be forbidden under threat of death to teach anymore. 5th, passport and traveling privileges should be absolutely forbidden to the Jews. They have no business in the rural districts. Let them stay at home. Well, great. So he's criticizing the Catholic Church for, not allowing the Jews to engage in other professions other than, let's say, money lending. And now he wants to do the exact same thing. Cannot protect them unless in the eyes of God you want to share all their abomination. Okay.
This is a blueprint.
Yes, exactly. Then they ought to be stopped from doing usury. Of course, there's no other way how they're supposed to earn a living, whatever, taking everything away from them. Everything that they possess, they stole and robbed from us through their usury. They have no other means of support. Okay, what do you want us to do? Well, that's what you could see how it led to the fact, well, let's just exterminate them. There's such terrible people to have within our midst. 7, let the young and strong Jews and Jewesses be given the flail, the axe, the hoe, the spade. So this is what he wants them to work at. The distaff, the spindle, and let them earn their bread by the sweat of their noses, as is enjoined upon Adam's children. That they shall work by the sweat of their brow, instead of idling away their days at the fireside and laziness, feasting and display. I mean, if we can't even earn a living, how are we supposed to be feasting? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's just hatred, hatred, hatred. We ought to drive the rascally lazy bones out of our system. Okay. Yeah, it was awful. It just came out in 20 years how he went to first seeming to welcome the Jews. Let's treat them differently. Let's, extend great kindness to them. and now to be virulently opposed to them. Let us apply the same cleverness, referring to expulsion, as the other nations, and settle with them for that which they have extorted from us. And after having divided up fairly, let us drive them out of the country for all time. Now, if you think back to Nazi Germany, they wanted initially just to rid them of the Jews, but all the other countries of the world, including the United States, would not issue them visas. They had no place to
So they
go.
realized that this is a good idea.
Then they figured, right, so when they had together the Wannsee Conference, and they said, well, let's just exterminate them all. Therefore, away with them. God's rage is so great against them. We may all be free of this insufferable devilish burden of the Jews. And just like the Catholic Church, makes us out to be the devil incarnate, so he's doing the exact same thing. Just whatever, makes you feel like you want to just cry, right? It's just awful. It's like there's nothing we can do that's going to change people's minds. We can have the American Jewish Committee and the ADL, and they can go and try to work and have conferences, and actually garnished in the end result, right? I guess you have to try, but it's like just terrible situation. So in any case, so now that you know about Martin Luther,
Okay.
I have to tell you, I come from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is settled mostly by Germans, and the Lutheran Church was very powerful. Actually, our next door neighbor, Reverend Rudisel, was a Lutheran minister. But my father says he remembers, I was born after the war, but in the 30s, obviously once the war broke out, when the US joined the war, then they must have toned down. But he said, so obviously throughout the 30s and up until 41, that that they would have all these pronouncements and rallies, extremely anti-Semitic. And I'll tell you, our neighbor was Reverend Russell, who was the minister of one of the Lutheran churches, and we always got along, pleasantly. They weren't like friends, but so just it was the Bund. Perhaps you've heard of it. It was
Oh,
the
they gave a
Bund.
lecture. the
Right.
other night.
Right.
Actually,
Oh.
we had a rally in Madison Square Garden.
Yes, it was huge. It was huge, right? Even though the Jews also had a big rally there, but they also had their own, spewing their ugly, ugly anti-Semitism. That's what happened all these years now after the Holocaust. So things have been toned down, and we haven't really heard publicly. It would have been shameful, but deep down they still have these
You
same
still see
ugly-
these rallies.
No,
with
that's
the
I'm saying.
You
It's
do.
coming back to the fore. That it's becoming
Auschwitz and-
public,
You
Thanks,
do.
Mayor. Any case, so now I'll just read the rest of that paragraph. Sort of, I've already explained it, but this is just to bring it all together. So we're
Yeah.
talking about Luther again. First, I told you he's criticizing the Catholic Church,
No,
for their attitudes towards the Jews and how very harshly they are treating them. He's saying, oh, it's no wonder they don't want to be Christians based on the interpretation of the Catholic Church, all right? He used very strong language, as you can tell. I just read them. It's verbatim from what he wrote, to describe the attacks and persecutions by which priests and monks sought to obtain the conversion of the Jews to Christianity. He condemned at that point, right, 1523, okay, Theses 1517, 1523. He's first, going to be very welcoming to the Jews, all right? I condemned the anti-Semitic excesses of Rome and its flawed theology. The proper way was the way of kindness and consideration. Until 1537, Luther was convinced that the Jews would abandon their ancient faith and join his new truth. He used many Jewish and rabbinic sources in his German translation of the Bible. This is actually the first time that the Bible is being translated into the vernacular. Vernacular means the local language, or the language of the people. Up until now, we've had Greek, right, interpretation, and we've had the Latin, right, interpretation. But this is now we're finally having it in the language of the people. So this is the first time, the German one. Actually, we haven't come to it, but there's a big dispute in the 1800s when Mendelssohn wanted to translate the Torah, the Tanakh, into German. And, many Jews up until that time opposed the idea that, no, you should only study it and learn it in Hebrew, because that's the language in which it was written. But most people then gradually, and certainly today, they do not know, Hebrew. And so if you're having it available in the English languages, it's now more available to people. In any case, but even told you, this is Mendelssohn, Moses Mendelssohn, we'll learn more about him. Okay, so again, up until, 1537, he's still holding out hope. Those Jews are going to convert, but they're going to adopt now Protestantism. Okay, not that terrible Catholicism. He had many complimentary things to say about the Hebrew language. Remember, I read to you a quote I thought it was great, that they liked the Hebrew language, not the Hebrews. Yeah.
Well, you gotta choose.
And they had many complimentary things and to say about the language. Great, thank you. Jewish scholarship and the mission of the Jews to bring God's word to the world. Okay. So they thought this is all wonderful. These are lovely things about Judaism. Luther's kindness towards the Jews was motivated by his hope, right? I think it was pretty much his goal for their mass conversion to Protestant Christianity. Once it became clear to him that the new Reformed Christianity had no more attraction for Jews than the old Roman Catholic version, he reacted violently. And you see, you could just see it's like, this is the playbill that the Nazis read. And they actually would quote Luther's works and in some of their articles in the papers. Yeah. Okay, so next paragraph. At first, the Jews were overjoyed, again, initially with his first writings, that at long last, a famous Christian preacher referred to them as human beings. Thank you. Okay. They did not realize that Luther's real aim was for them to convert to the form of Christianity as he understood it. This is like Nebba. The Jews of Germany went so far in their misunderstanding of Luther that they actually congratulated him on the steps he was taking to bring Christians closer to Judaism. Like the opposite, All right, the majority of Jews had been looking merely for a lightening of their burdens. And thinking, oh, thank God, that Catholic Church and the Pope, everything's been so horrible and terrible for us. Now we have a new Christian leader, and he seems initially, to be dealing very kindly and praising us, and no, totally different. Luther now attributed everything to the stubbornness of the Jews and to what he called the inherent falsehoods contained in Jewish literature. And it's always an attack on the Talmud. They can't attack the Torah because they're adopting that as part of their faith. So what is it that they're criticizing? Oh, yeah, our oral law. Oh, that's what's so terrible. Okay. He even outdid the Catholic Church in the vile terms which he heaped upon the Jews and Judaism. He refused to speak out against their expulsion from Saxony in 1539. So this is, again, before what I read you the last part of his writings, which is 1543. And he even advised their ultimate complete extermination. This is a, more contemporary person writing this, using that word extermination. Obviously, he felt if we couldn't properly convert, he wanted more to confine us. I don't know that in his writings he actually said more. He talks about their expulsion. Okay. Once more, a movement hopeful in its beginnings for the betterment of the fate of Jews ended in their utter disillusionment. Really terrible. When you think about German Jewry, even in the 1930s, except for those who were smart enough to get out there. Oh, they kept on poo-pooing it.
We did in 74.
Well, your family was smart, but not everybody did. First of all, not everybody had the wherewithal to the means,
That is true.
right?
We did.
To leave.
Was a full country.
But if you were determined, you did, attempt to leave. You'll see Jews are going to start leaving Germany. They're going to move eastward. Why do you think they went to Poland? Too bad they went there. But, at the time, first of all, when we get to the Jews of Poland, you'll see they were actually welcomed initially by their king. They felt they could live a more settled life there, more protected life. in Germany, things are terrible for them, and they're constantly being expelled, or they're forced to live in ghettos. And now, not only are the Catholics against them, now the Protestants are against them. So it's like, like just the hair. It's a terrible situation, and they are going to start leaving. Okay, so I'll read that last. Well, the last page we're up to, right? Okay, the Protestants, especially in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, were notorious for the violent anti-Semitism. I know. What do you view Switzerland? Were they so nice to the Jews, even in World War II? I don't know. They didn't really want us in. All right. In the religious wars that racked Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries, tens of thousands of Jews perished. Only in Holland, eventually, I hope Shalom hasn't still told me when he's going to talk to us. But only in Holland were the Jews protected. And this is only once a Spanish rule came to an end, in Holland, and then the Jews could move there. I mean, there were already probably conversos living there, for business purposes. They had moved to Holland, but they could live openly only, when the Catholic Church left, as represented by Spanish, the monarchy, and then under. So that's the one country. I don't know, different interpretations about how did the Dutch really treat their Jews, even in the 40s. They always make themselves out they were so wonderful. Maybe
They still don't know who did Anne Frank.
right. I don't believe
a whole
that.
thing
Yeah, I do.
And now they're blaming the Jews.
Yeah, natural. Yeah, I know. Isn't that nasty? All right. Any case, so we know there was definitely anti-Semitism. Austria, I'll be teaching you more about the Jews living in Austria. Terrible for those Jews in Austria. They are the, I don't know if you ever read anything with Simon Wiesenthal. I mean, it is Vienna is the most anti-Semitic city. In the religious wars, okay, tens of thousands perished. Only Jews, Holland, right, were Jews protected, and their status eventually strengthened. But this only occurred after the Great Wars in the Lowlands ended in 1567. I told you, and then the Spanish rule comes to an end, and now it's a more independent rule, and that's when the Jews will start flourishing there. The ravages of these religious wars and the enmity, hatred, and persecution of Jews, which drove ever more Western European Jews eastwards towards Poland and Lithuania. And other Ashkenazi Jews fled to Catholic Italy. Isn't that interesting? I told you, Italy's a very interesting country. There were, so this is the stronghold of the Pope, but again, I think it's something perhaps endemic to the Italian people. Yes, they oppressed us, and that's right. The word ghetto comes, from the one that was erected in Venice. But it's like they're more easygoing. It wasn't to the extent as it is to other parts of Europe. Okay, just a very interesting country and people. The Reformation was the final destabilizing event that sent Western European Jewry into decline and flight. It's interesting, I've been looking and studying already, and working on putting together a list of the various Rabbanim and the great works from this time period. In the 16th century, it's still somewhat flourishing, but by the time you get, into the 17th century, it's really just, you don't hear very many at all coming from these various countries. That includes Italy, Germany, right? Austria, really comes to an end. You have to understand, there's still no Jews allowed in France, and there's still no Jews allowed in England. And of course, we've already been expelled from Spain. And the one Portuguese Jews there are also going to finally get out, right? They've been living as lives as conversos, but they're going to eventually get out. Okay. The flouting and defeat of the Roman Catholic Church, which the Reformation symbolized, profoundly influenced Jewish Europe. It planted ideas of rebellion. I don't like this. I don't know. I'm trying to remember who I got this from. So I was just trying to say, well, maybe it did. It somehow does influence the Jews themselves that, this won't happen though until more the 18th century. So to put it in here, I don't know if this entirely, there are some movements. I mean, when we study Holland, we'll learn about Spinoza. So there are some people who are now going to look at the Jewish religion and some of the thought processes and start criticizing. I don't know if you're surrounded by people constantly dumping on Judaism. So maybe say, well, maybe there's some validity to it, whatever. It's a very tiny, minute minority who are going to do this. Okay. As the 16th, last paragraph, as the 16th century progressed, it became clear that the liberal promises of the revival in art and learning were not to be fulfilled. The energies of the peoples of Europe were spent in wars in Italy and the suppression of peasant revolts in Germany and in conflicts between Protestants and Catholics. The emperor, remember I mentioned his name before, Charles V, attempted to spread Spanish dominion and influence. So I guess the Holy Roman Empire is including Germany, but it's also including Spain. And the Catholic Church tried to regain the power it had lost with the spread of Protestantism. This is called counter-reformation. There was no longer time for the cultivation of the mind. The position of the Jews only degenerated. Little by little, Jewish life was restricted. Many Jews were subjected to attack and degradation, and large numbers were killed. Deprived of economic opportunity, many were expelled and made to wander in search of new homelands. Over the centuries, the population of the Jews in Western Europe gradually decreased, and new communities in the East and eventually in the New World took over the task of leadership and Jewish scholarship. I want to, and again, well, I hope Shalom's going to talk on the 24th. I have to confirm it with him. What's happening is, so we're having the Jews in Middle Europe, and where are they going? The Jews in Middle Europe, Central Europe, they're going to move primarily eastward. Okay. But those remaining conversos, and again, it's Portuguese conversos, not the Spanish ones, because they eventually do become lost, to us. Here and there, you'll hear some Jews, and people who return to Judaism, but it's going to be those Portuguese who as a community, have lived lives as conversos, and they're the ones who are going to go to Holland. All right. Again, I just told you, because it's no longer under Catholic rule, and there they are welcomed in, and they establish, and they do well, and they eventually will go to England, all right, and will semi-officially, again, Sean can tell you about this, can live open lives as Jews there. That's what I'm talking about, that they can live openly as Jews and not be oppressed for their religion. And it is those Jews, what Shalom calls the Western Sephardim, the Spanish Portuguese Jews, they are the ones who then go to the New World, and they set up communities throughout the Caribbean, northern Brazil only briefly, then they go to live in New York, New Amsterdam at that point. And that's how, from a tiny group of Jews who come to America, in 1654, it's like amazing. Wow. That I don't know if we're the largest community anymore. I wonder if Israel has surpassed us in numbers of Jews, but whatever, we're very similar, in sizes of population. So in any case, so next week, I hope to teach you more just in general about the Jews of Germany. Then I have prepared already sheets of certain great rabbanim who came out of Italy in this time period. And then I'll have one for those, not as many, but who have come out of Germany. There'll be a greater number of famous rabbanim from Poland already in this time period. And you'll recognize their names, because I'm sure, me too, you hear their names mentioned or quoted in lectures or articles, and now you'll know exactly, who they are and where they lived and at what time. Okay. Yes.
Are you going to deal also with the issue of terrorism and
Eventually I'll return to them, but I have to wait till I get to those people who actually dealt with. I would say that, I think it's of great interest in Jewish scholarship to learn about that and the differences. Did it have such a great impact on us ultimately? Who knows? Unless this idea of being separate, and this can lead to these false messiahs. I don't know. You could view it, on that angle. So I will eventually, but not quite. I first want to finish, this one region of the world, and then we'll move on. Yes.
Of course, as you said in your discussion, it didn't happen for many centuries.
Right. It takes a while till things occur.
The beginning of Reform Judaism is right there.
No,
in
no.
Germany.
No, this happens at a later point. No, not now at all. No. Yeah, but I don't think that has anything to do with this. That's, they want to be part of the modern world. It's a completely different group of people. Well, I'll talk about that when we come to it. Right. All right. So believe me, I know this. I know Jewish history. Okay. So I thank you all, and please God, I will see you next week. Take care. Glad both of you were on.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I might have to have the lady come back and do it for me. Oh,
Okay.
wait. Now she fixed it. Let's see.
The $10,000.
Yes. Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.